Many people have their own idea of what a life worth living looks like. And this is mine, based on my own life experience. Though I feel that I wouldn't have done enough justice if I didn't put in a vote of thanks towards the many people that did bring me to where I am today. And that largely is my history teachers, Mrs. Harvey, Mr. de Klerk, Mr. Knowles, and Miss Armstrong. In saying that, the long and short of it is, honor God, honor others, and honor self. Now, to give you some context, I come from a place where I dedicated my life towards the service of other people. In primary school, I was a prefect, I was the head boy. Coming to high school, I was the chapel steward. I was in the SRC. In matric, I finished off with myself being a prefect in charge of student affairs, basically taking care of all the students in the school. Then coming into university, I expected something grand. I expected, some sort of continuity. I didn't expect the reality which became a life that almost felt as if I'd lost all the meaning which I'd built up over the past 12 years, the 12 years before that. I woke up most mornings at 12 o'clock at noon. I'd spend days skipping lectures, watching Netflix. I'd lost a lot of myself, I feel, in that year. And looking back at it now, it's not something I ever feel I should want to repeat, And so, at the end of that year, I decided to run for the position of first-year guardian at my residence, one which was basically becoming the mother, the mom of all the first years. And I think at my res, 120 of them we got in the following year. And I like to joke about it because many of them still come to me to this day and say Happy Mother's Day to me on Mother's Day. And so, the change from first year to second year was day and night. Things changed drastically. All of a sudden, I'm not staying in bed till 12 o'clock at noon. I'm not wasting time watching series instead of, helping people, knowing that somewhere, someone out there needs me. One of my first years needs me out there. And so I look back at it now and I wonder what changed. What changed from first year to second year, or already from my high school experience? And that's what I have for you today in the formulation of that formula, which is honor God, honor others, and honor self. So honor God. Many people, when I say honor God, think I'm talking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No, it can be that, but not necessarily, but rather your why. What is your why? When you're down and out, what is that extra bit that will push you through? So Viktor Frankl talks in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, recounting his experiences in a Nazi concentration camp. He speaks about how those people in the concentration camps that had a why, that had a reason for wanting to get out of there. I want to see my wife one day. I want to visit Switzerland. I want to taste freedom one day. All those people tended to live much longer than the people that had given up. That said, no, I've had enough. He quotes Friedrich Nietzsche, and he says, he who has a why can stand almost anyhow. And looking at it now, that's almost exactly what happened to me. In my first year, I had virtually nothing. I had only myself, and I had choir, yes, but I had nothing to dedicate myself towards. I didn't have a clear why. If you'd asked me back then, I couldn't tell you why I was here at university, other than getting the degree. And so I thought, be more intentional about it. Looking now, I move on, all these people, these lives that I've impacted, and I say, wow, I had 120 whys to get up every morning instead of sleeping in the day or wasting my time on certain practices. Then, honor others. Here I quote Mrs. Dalloway in a novel by Virginia Woolf, and she says, as we are all prisoners chained to a sinking ship, let us do our part to mitigate the suffering of our fellow prisoners. Decorate the dungeons with flowers. And that for me speaks to making life easier for the people around us. Making it easier so that at the end of the day, we realize that we are part of the community, and the community has a vested interest in us as well. Although this does come with a second aspect of it, which is something very close to me. Today, many people, I feel, don't take the time to listen anymore. And because they don't take the time to listen, they refuse to understand. They refuse to empathize with the people around them. And allow themselves to see another way of life. And so realizing this, I decided at my residence, all my first years, we need to promote discourse. We need to talk about the things. We need to have critical discussions, not so that we agree with each other. And that's intolerance. We need to at least understand each other so that people know that the social difference based on race, gender, and sexuality aren't the primary modes of judging a person, but rather by a person's character. By halfway through the year in my residence, at least on my corridor, we got guys coming onto the corridor no more feeling like that social difference is what people think of them when they get on there. Rather than that, by virtue of their being there, by virtue of just being a person, I'm able to recognize your value. You know, I don't have to agree with you, but at least I understand you and I know where you're coming from. Then finally, I come to honor self. I feel many people in this day and age find it easy, as I was saying earlier on, to let themselves down. If it's just me, an example my friend gave me is that if it's just me waking up at 6 a.m. in the morning for a run, it's easy to say, nah, shup, snooze, I'm not going to do it. Whereas when there's all of a sudden someone else, you wake up 6 a.m., you want to snooze, but oh wait, someone else is waiting to run with me. You know, someone's waiting for me out there. You know, all of a sudden you have that extra impetus to get up and to get out there. And this alludes to something which is also quite important to me, is that if you can't find meaning in yourself, in the things that you love, look for meaning outside of you, in the service of other people. And as I've said, that's where I found it with the people that I dedicated my life towards. Then Matthew McConaughey, in his Oscar-winning speech, which in my opinion should have won an Oscar of its own, he highlights different aspects of it, and which is very, very closely tied to that of Stoicism, which is give yourself someone to look forward to. So he tells a story of how when he was young, someone would come to him and say, Matt, who is your role model? And he says, I don't know, ask me in a week's time. And they come to him a week later and they say, Matt, who is your role model? He says, I don't know, ask me in a week's time. A week's time, they ask him the same question and he says, it's me in 10 years. 10 years later, they come and they ask him the same question. He says, no, it's me in 10 years' time. And so you see what Matthew was doing was that he was constantly shifting the standard of what it meant for him in his mind for the perfect person that he wanted to be. In the legal terms, we talk about transformative constitutionalism, and if we equate them, it's basically, with what Matthew was saying was that you are never going to be the person, the standard that you want to be, but true perfection comes out of continually working towards that which you want to, what you aspire towards. Recognizing, honoring self for me is recognizing that what society, what your family needs, what you need now isn't what you're going to need in 5 years' time. You need to adapt yourself continually remake yourself so that you are a true reflection each time as you move along of what you desire, what you want to be in this life. Then Polonius in Shakespeare's Hamlet speaks to young Hamlet and he says to the young Hamlet, and above all else, to thyself be true. Too many people come here to university, too many of my first years drop out because they're living the lives of other people. They're living the lives of their parents that want something from them, of a specific society, a culture, whatever other people want from them. And Bon Jovi for me is instrumental in this, and then they say, it's my life, it's now or never. I ain't going to live forever. I just want to live while I'm alive. And so what I say in terms of honoring yourself is reminding yourself that you have one life, you have to live it. You know, it's one thing to think that you can make yourself happy by keeping everyone else happy, but at the end of the day, the man in the glass, you in the glass need to be happy with who you are. Now, I wouldn't be an academic if I didn't at least provide some caution towards what I'm saying, and I find Tim Minchin is instrumental in this, in his speech that he gave at the University of Western Australia, 9 Life Lessons. And he there proposes 2 things amongst many others, but these 2 are the most important for me. And the one is short-term commitment to short-term goals, passionate commitment to short-term goals. So while it's nice to know that in 5 years' time, I want this degree, I want to be a human rights lawyer, I want to change the world, while it's fine to know that, what are you doing in the short term to help you towards that goal? Stoicism again says, what can you control? What can you control? You can't control the graduation ceremony 5 years from now, but you can control now what you're doing. Preparing for your tests, doing the hard work. But at the same time, Minchin then says, you can't live like this. You can't live your life with the blinders that horses wear. Allow yourself to stop along the way, to pick up little gems of life, to build up your CV of of good living. Paulo Coelho is instrumental in this in his book, The Alchemist, and I see it in my life as well, is if young Santiago, he knew he wanted to travel, but he never took the time to actually get out of his way, to live life a bit. Imagine I was happy with who I was in first year. Imagine I sat and said, this is it. This is who I want to be. I'd never have joined the choir. I'd never have picked up first year guardian, never become the chairperson, never taken the time to build up my profile, my personal CV of life. Never been able to impact lives in the way that I wanted to. Now, I've said a lot, and what I'd like you to take out of this, at the very least, is again what I've said: honor God, honor your why. And of course, that means you need to know it. Honor others, and honor yourself. And the framework for this, which I've always proposed, is live it with intent. Be practical about it. And finally, be authentic. Thank you.